Hello, everyone. This is Ryan from Online Selling Experiment, and tonight we're going to be doing a quick 1 hour or so Q&A webinar. So we'll give everybody just a few minutes here to get started and join this call. So for those of you that are here already, welcome. If you could let me know in the chat where you're from, that would be awesome, just to make sure the audio is coming through clearly, and then we'll get into the Q&A session shortly. Welcome, Justin from Greenville, North Carolina. Hello, Carl. Hey, Billy. Welcome, Johnny. All right, looks like we are live. Mike, welcome. Cool. So great to see you guys here. I'll do a quick introduction. Some of you probably know a little bit about me if you've joined this from an email list, but I'll just give a quick rundown and then we'll dive into your questions. So in the chat, you should have an option to post questions. So you can post them directly in the chat or there's like a question and answer portion. So feel free to post those questions anywhere. And then we'll get started on those as soon as they start rolling in. So a quick introduction. So I've been selling on Amazon full-time since September of 2013. Prior to that, I was working as an accountant, and I didn't really like that job. So I decided to step away to work on building my own business. And that's what I really wanted to pursue. So that was about almost 4 years ago now that I stepped away. And now fast forward to today, I've got a team in place that helps me keep everything running. We have a warehouse we do all of our processing out of. We've done over 7 figures in sales the last 2 years, and we're looking to keep that going. We've got quite a bit of experience in a lot of different aspects of the selling on Amazon world. We source products via retail arbitrage, online arbitrage. We do some wholesale sourcing. We've done a variety of private labeling in the past, and then most recently have bought an existing website that runs on the Shopify platform. So we have some experience there too. So I'm open to questions on any of those topics. We also sell, in addition to Amazon, we're also selling on jet.com, and we're selling on eBay in addition to Amazon. Amazon's by far our #1 platform, but we do have things set up on those other platforms as well. So as soon as you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Happy to take questions on anything related to selling on Amazon. We should be able to answer most questions as long as it's not too revealing or too as long as it's nothing that'll impact the business. So I'll take Mike's question quick first. Is 7 figures net or gross? So that is gross sales. Net is typically between about 10 and 15%. I'm not really disclosing exact sales numbers anymore. If you want to get a good idea of what things look like, on my blog, onlineSellingExperiment.com, you can see past financial results posts, and those break down exactly what things look like. There were some pretty big months in there. So like if you want to see a big month, December of 2014, that was about 225,000 in sales, and the net ended up being about 50K for that month. If you want to see like the beginning stages where it's just getting started, October 2013 through the summer of 2014, you'll see what it was like just getting started. Sales ranged from about 3,000 on Amazon some of those first months, and then they're up to about 20,000 as it gets further along, and it gradually grows from there. And then there's a question, so what are your favorite places to source? So I'm not going to be able to share exact places we source for like retail and online arbitrage, but our favorite places to source are anywhere that we can find that we can make profits. And some of this comes with experience. So I definitely recommend testing as many different stores as possible when it comes to really every different sourcing model. Retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale. The more different places that you're going to be working from and the more places that you have in the mix, the more winners you're going to find. And then once you find a winner, no matter what the method is, I would recommend taking full advantage of that and maximizing everything that you can from that particular source. So, I mean, no Amazon seller is likely to tell you exactly where they get their products. So that's like one question I'm not going to be able to give you super specifics on, but most other questions, it won't be an issue to share specific strategies and specifics like that. All right, then let's go to, and then, all right, so I've got the chat. And then if you can put questions in the question and answer portion, they'll come through a little bit smoother. So if you can use that section, that would be appreciated. Otherwise, I will go through the chat here and we'll go through that. So Justin's asking, per the Smart Passive Income interview that you did with Pat Flynn, why do you want to have sales ranks under 250,000? So if we take a step back, sales rank gives us an indication of how well an item is selling on Amazon. And that gives us some idea of how quickly that item sells. And then with that information, we can get an idea of how many of those are selling on a regular basis. So 250,000 is a number that, based on my experience in most categories, is going to sell relatively quickly. There's definitely exceptions. Every category is different, but 250,000 is a pretty good, safe number for just getting started. It'll keep you out of trouble. And then with that said, over time, I would definitely recommend expanding on that sales rank range. You don't want to stay in that for every single category or at every ROI range. Over time, based on your experience, you're going to want to tweak that. But 250,000, that was basically came up with as a way to, basically a way for new sellers who haven't sold on Amazon before. It's a good rank range that is going to keep them out of trouble and gives you a very high probability of success. And then one other quick note on sales rank. There's a couple websites, one's called Keepa.com, Keepa.com, and another called Camel.com. And both of those track sales rank and price history over time for products on Amazon. So if you take a look at some products on there and see how sales rank fluctuates over time, it'll give you an idea of how quickly it's selling. And most of the items you'll see that have a rank of 250,000 or lower, the sales rank chart is going to bounce up and down on those sites. And what that means is that the product is selling. Basically, every time the product sells, it's going to change the sales rank of the product. And likewise, if it doesn't sell for a long period of time, the sales rank is continually going to get worse and worse. So 250,000 is a safe range for starting. And that's why I recommended that initially. All right, Greg is asking, can you give us your thoughts on what marketplaces are best for what kind of products? So in my opinion, Amazon is the ideal marketplace for brand new products, things that don't need any description. You're just selling it brand new. It's in a sealed box. There's nothing that really needs to be described about it. Amazon's your place for everything new. And then in terms of like used products, I also think like used media, so used books, used video games, those type of products, those do really well on Amazon too. And then eBay is, at least in my business, that's where things that don't work for Amazon go. So if there's a product that's used or damaged and it's not textbooks, it's not video games, then we're going to look to sell it on eBay. Based on my experience, we have some items that are listed on Amazon, eBay, and Jet.com, and by far they sell the best on Amazon when it's a brand new product. So Amazon's all the brand new stuff, eBay used, or anything that needs a lot of description. And then Jet.com, that's kind of a newer marketplace. I'd recommend cross-listing your Amazon listings over to Jet.com once you have a decent amount of listings. And you can do that with a tool called CoMerchant, which is what I'm using. And then that basically automatically converts all your Amazon listings to Jet. But for the vast majority of products, I think Amazon most likely is the best marketplace. And then Greg, if you have like a specific product type or a specific business or like a specific question related to your business, I can potentially advise better on if a different marketplace would be better. But Amazon for me is the preferred marketplace, and then the other ones come in after that. All right, Billy's asking, I've been doing PL for the past year on Amazon. I still have 26K in inventory that's not selling. What's the best way to get rid of it? So That's not the most fun situation to be in. And I've done something similar in the past with a PL item where we got stuck with some products. I'm assuming you've probably tried some of these things already, but the first things I would do would be to make sure your listing is completely optimized and make sure you're running Amazon pay-per-click ads. I'd make sure you have all the possible keywords in there, do everything you can to optimize the listing, and then drive as much traffic to the listing on Amazon as you possibly can. With pay-per-click ads, you could run set up a promotion for it. So if they buy multiple of it, then they get an additional 10% off. Those would be kind of my first options for it. And then once you've exhausted those options, if it's something that you're not going to be able to sell on Amazon, or it's something that you're going to need to do on another platform, it's just not moving, then I would look into liquidation.com or potentially like a local liquidation type company. There's several in my area, which is Minneapolis. So I would imagine there are in your area too. But I would just Google like liquidation companies and see what other options there are. But my first bet would be make sure everything's up to par on Amazon. And then if you're not selling it on like eBay or jet.com, I'd get it on every marketplace possible. And then I would go to like liquidation.com, sold some stuff through that in the past, and you tend to recover something for the items. It's probably not likely to be much more than your cost, and it might even be less. But that would be a few things that I would say there. All right, Antonio is asking, how many SKUs did you start with? So in the business model that I use primarily, I started off mainly with retail and online arbitrage. So I mean, you could argue that I started off with the first item I bought, but realistically, I probably had 10 to 15 items after the first few shipments I did, and then it just continually grew from there. And if we take a step back, before I was even full-time, when I was in college, I would buy textbooks from other students. We would set up at a place, like we'd set up on campus or nearby and buy books from students. And that was kind of my first foray into Amazon selling. So with textbooks, I probably started with less than 50 the first semester that I did it. And then I've just gradually grown from there. So this question might relate more to like a private label type seller. And that's a model that we use, but it's not the only one. So with the retail and online arbitrage, you're likely to have a high number of different products. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. All right. If you have not started Amazon FBA, what is a realistic 1 month, 3 month, 1 year goal to start off with? So that question is going to depend a lot on how much time you have available to dedicate to the business and also how much capital you have available. And if you have no experience, let's just hypothetical numbers here. Let's say you have $5,000 in capital, whether that's cash or credit card, and you have 20 hours a week to dedicate to the business. I think within 1 month, you're probably not going to see much of any results, but my goal within 1 month would be to have that $5,000 invested in inventory. And then it's going to take some time to sell from there, because when you buy an item, then you have to ship it into Amazon. That's going to take 3 days to up to a week. And then it's got to sell. So there's some lead time there. So within 1 month, my goal would be to spend the full 5,000. And then from there, every time that I would get a deposit from Amazon, I would look to reinvest the full amount of that back into inventory and just keep the growth catapulting from there. In terms of like what the goal would be, like for me, I don't like to set sales goals. I like to set inventory spending goals, because I can control exactly what I'm investing in inventory. I can't necessarily control exactly what the sales will be. If I'm buying the right products, the two should be highly correlated. And if they're not, you should evaluate before continuing to spend on inventory. But I would set the goal for sure through 3 months to have everything just continually invested in inventory. And realistically, if you can do that for a full year, that's like a best case scenario if you're looking to really grow the business quickly. So, I mean, from my experience, within 3 months, if I had 5K to start with 20 hours a week, my goal would be to be in the somewhere around $10,000 in sales per month. After a year, if I'm reinvesting everything, I would be looking to do about depends on what time of the year you started, but I would be looking to be in the 30 to 40K per month in sales range. Those would be kind of my initial goals. And like, if you go back to the initial results posts that I have posted on my blog, that would be a good way to see what's possible. If you look at like October of 2013 through December of 2014, that's like a 15-month stretch, but you kind of need December to really see what's possible in the business. Because December, most likely for most people, December is going to be the time that you see the biggest returns from the business. So I'd make sure you include December's in there. But yeah, I'd take a look through October 2013 through December of 2014, and that should give you a good idea of how the business grew. Carl's asking if I do a lot of drop shipping. I don't do any drop shipping at the moment. All right, Peter is saying, I'm having an issue with many products being restricted for sale on Amazon. So Amazon has restrictions in certain categories, and they'll also have restrictions on certain brands. So there's the possibility to get approved for both categories, like say grocery, health and beauty, health and personal care, clothing, shoes, all of those, you can get approved to sell in those categories. So if anything that you're talking about that's restricted is in one of those categories and you haven't got the category level approval, I would first look to get the category level approval, and then you will potentially be able to sell those products. If it's a brand level approval, so say like you can't sell a Fisher-Price toy, for example, there is the potential to get approval for those specific brands, but that's a little bit harder. So for that, I would say, I guess the biggest thing I would say with restrictions is either work to get approval or focus on categories and products that you can sell. So some categories that I would like, if you're running into a lot of restrictions, I would look into like textbooks, video games, home improvement. Some of those categories are much less likely to run into a large number of restrictions. So I would try to focus there, or go through the process of getting the approvals to be able to sell more products in more categories. All right, next question here is, what is your favorite category to source? So my business follows a bit of a seasonal sourcing strategy type model. So in the retail and online arbitrage type models, typically we are buying products when they are either going out of season, because that's when the stores are clearancing them and they want to get rid of the products, or we're looking to buy things for the next holiday. So like we're in October through December, we're more likely to be buying toys and gift type items leading up to Christmas to take advantage of the Q4 opportunity. We'll also do strategies for just about every holiday. There's Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, 4th of July, Halloween, you name it. There's some type of product that goes with those. So we don't focus so much as what's the category that gives us the best opportunity. We focus more on where can we find the products, or what do we have access to that provides us with good deals. And then the category is changing throughout the year with what exactly we're selling. So that really varies. Textbooks, we do that. That's kind of a seasonal strategy too. Those are really good to sell in August, September timeframe, and then January, because those are the two main times that college students are going back to school. So those are big time frames there. But I would focus on what's available to you in terms of category. If you have, especially like if you have a really high interest in something, or you have a lot of availability to a specific type of products, I would focus on that. But just because I'm seeing results with a certain category, just because another seller is seeing results with a certain category, doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have access to the same things. So I'd focus on what's available to you and what you're good at, as opposed to picking a random category and then picking that way. All right, Greg, how often do you reprice? Any tips? All right, so repricing is a topic all of its own. We'll dive in a little bit and get started. So in terms of how often, so I use a repricer. The one I'm using is called AppEagle, and it is constantly updating prices for me based on changes to the competition. In my business, we are setting and updating the repricer every single day. We're tweaking something in there, setting prices on our listing. And then, so literally every day we're making changes, even with the repricer, because we have new products going live on Amazon pretty much every day. And we have to set our minimum and maximum prices within the repricer to have the repricer activate on those particular items. So in terms of tips, the first thing I would say is whenever possible, do not undercut the competition. If you're an FBA seller, I recommend either matching the low FBA competition or pricing between about 1 cent above and 1.5 cents, or 1.5. So 1 cent and 1.5% above the next lowest FBA competition. So let's say, and the FBA competition portion is important. So let's pretend there's an item we're selling. There's a merchant fulfilled seller at $20, and then the low FBA is at $25. So when I'm first pricing that item, I'm going to start off pricing it between 1 cent and 1.5% above the current low FBA seller. So in this example, I would price somewhere probably around $25.99, as that's around 1%. That's actually quite a bit more. So in this example, I'd price it around like $25.25, somewhere in there, between $25 and $25.25, because that would be around 1% higher than the competition. That would be my starting point. At this point, I should get some rotation in the buy box and should have a good chance to sell my items, and I'm not going to encourage other sellers to drop their price. So that's kind of my default initial pricing strategy. If that doesn't get sales, then I look to match the low FBA competition, and then that's typically where I'll leave things. If things really aren't selling, and it's been 3 to 6 months, that's when I'll look to move between or lower than the current low FBA competition, but still typically not lower than the low merchant fulfilled competition. So that's a few general tips. I use kind of a time-based type structure. So initially I'll price above the competition. If it's not selling there, then I'll match the competition. And then if it's really not selling, and this has to be a fairly significant amount of time, like 3 months, then I will begin to go below the FBA competition. And the reason for using this type of strategy is that let's say you have the FBA competition at $25, and then you want to price at $24.99. And then the other person who's on the listing, they also want to be the lowest price. So then they're going to put their price at $24.98. And then it can kind of just trigger this never ending decrease in price. That's known as the race to the bottom. That's something you definitely want to avoid. So that's a few tips on repricing. If you have any more specific questions there, happy to take those as well. Carl's asking, is 250,000 in terms of sales rank only on Amazon.com, or is it good on the .ca platform, the Canada platform as well? So the sales rank guideline of 250,000 is only for the Amazon.com platform. Amazon.ca has quite a bit lower volume than .com, so I would definitely not use that there. I haven't personally sold on the Canada platform, so I can't advise on a sales rank there, but it would definitely be lower than the .com platform. Antonio is asking, do you use the average 30-day rank or the current rank when we're making your decision? 95% of the time, we're using the current rank when we're making a buying decision. And that's done largely for speed. If we're making a really large buy, or it's something that we're investing a higher amount than usual, or it's something we don't have as much experience with, then we'll look at the sales rank history and potentially factor in like the past 30 days from there. So typically that's what we do. Mike's asking, could you start with an FBA 101, talk about logistics, then hit the specific questions? Yeah, so if you're really at the one-on-one level, I'd recommend, there's a post on my blog. I believe it's on the homepage of onlinesellingexperiment.com. Just the ultimate beginner's guide to selling on Amazon. It kind of walks through everything, but in a nutshell, FBA means you buy a product, you're going to ship it to Amazon's warehouses. And then once the product sells, Amazon's going to ship the product to the customer for you and then pay you for the item. So that's how it works in a nutshell. And then, I'd highly recommend reading that post. It'll take you probably 10 minutes and it should give you a good idea. And if there's still questions after that, you can send me an email or leave it in the comments section of that post. And I'd be happy to help walk you through whatever you need. Okay, let's see. Latasha's asking, I keep hearing that retail arbitrage is getting harder. I want to try out the online selling experiment to get my feet wet. Should I continue trying big box stores, or do you recommend smaller niche stores? So I think retail arbitrage is still alive and well, in my opinion. It's not necessarily as easy as it always was. There's more restrictions that come into play, but there's still a lot of opportunity out there. I talk to sellers all the time who are relatively new, and they're still seeing great results. So big box stores are a good way to start. If you have like smaller mom and pop type discount stores, those can be good options as well. With retail arbitrage, I would focus on as many different stores as you can, or trying out as many different stores as you can and seeing what works best for you. For some people, that's going to be big box stores. And for other people, that's going to be smaller mom and pop type stores. It really depends on your location and what's available in your area and what the typical markdowns are like in your particular store. Because if you're in a town with 10 Walmarts or versus a town with one Walmart, that could definitely impact things. And oftentimes, like with Walmarts, for example, they're going to have different deals or different discounts in different stores. So I would definitely try out the big box stores still. We're still sourcing, especially at Q4 times, we're sourcing in Walmarts, Targets, Toys R Us. Those are all places we're still finding inventory. And like Home Depot, those are all places we're still finding stuff, and we buy stuff from those regularly. So there's tons of stuff in the big box stores still. So I would try those. If for whatever reason those aren't working for you, then I would niche down a little bit and focus on some things that are only available in your area. The beauty of selling on Amazon is there's many different ways to do it. There's many different stores to buy from in a retail arbitrage type capacity. So there's a lot of ways to make it work. It's just a matter of testing it out and finding the option that works best for you. That's a few thoughts there. If you have specific questions there, happy to take those, or additional specific questions that didn't cover. Definitely let me know. Then we got one here asking, have you sent out the prizes for the SPI podcast yet? So the prize, if you complete the challenge, is you'll get a copy of Pat's next book when it releases. So his next book hasn't released yet. I believe it's sometime later this year that it's expected to come out. So when Pat launches his book, that's when the prizes will be sent out. And we haven't reached 100 people completing it yet. So if you've done the challenge and want to submit the proof, definitely feel free to do that, and you'll get a free copy of Pat's book. And the details for that are on onlinesellingexperiment.com/SPI. Billy is asking, do you carry product liability insurance? So not product liability insurance at the moment, because most of the products that we sell are other people's brands. That with the retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale type sourcing models, all of that is someone else's brand. So we don't have product liability insurance for that. With private label products in the past, we have had product liability insurance. As in that case, we are technically the manufacturer, and then we're on the hook. The chat sometimes distracts me when it posts a new question, but when we do private label and we're listed as the brand / manufacturer of the product, then we either set up a legal entity that will provide us protection, or we will get the product liability insurance. So that's product liability insurance. Then completely separate is we have commercial general liability insurance. So that factors in a bit differently and covers other things for the business. It will provide some coverage in the event that people get hurt with our products, but it also provides things like coverage if something happens to an employee, something happens where the warehouse burns down and all the inventory goes away. It covers things like that. So that's an important distinction. And with any insurance or legal type matter, I'd recommend getting the advice of a professional, so a lawyer in this case, and just making sure that your bases are covered. All right, JP is asking, what is the name of your Amazon store? So I'm not going to be able to share the name of the Amazon store. In the Amazon world, that's not something that people generally share, because then you can see exactly what someone's doing, exactly what they're selling. Especially like in a private label type capacity, you can see exactly what products they have, what the results are, and then copy it and do something similar. So won't be able to share the name of the Amazon store. All right. Elizabeth has a question. What percentage of your business do you do in RA versus OA versus wholesale versus private label? And has this shifted a great deal in your time in business? So I'd say retail arbitrage is probably about 50% at the moment of what I'm doing in the business. Online arbitrage is probably about 20. Wholesale is 20 to 25%. And then private label is right now a very small portion, less than 5%. And then in terms of has that shifted? So right away, like the first model that I was doing was retail arbitrage. And then over time, I've added in the other avenues. So at one point in time, I was almost 100% retail, and then that's shifted over time. So my methodology with the business is I want to figure out one process at a time and then master that and then outsource that to other people so that they can continue running that portion of the process for me. And then I can begin to expand into other sourcing models. So retail arbitrage was kind of the first thing I got into. And then that was the first one that I was able to outsource. So that was, that's been in existence since the beginning. The percentage that it makes up of my business has been going down over time. Online arbitrage was the second thing that was added. That began to displace some of the retail arbitrage, and that's maintained fairly steady as compared to the others. And then wholesale has been quickly climbing. I've gotten into that within the past, really seriously, about a year ago was when I really started getting into the wholesale side of the business. And now that's mainly outsourced too. So, I mean, pretty much everything in my Amazon business at this point is outsourced to various members of my team. And then they help keep everything going. So wholesale should continue to become a larger and larger percentage of the business. The retail arbitrage and the online arbitrage, there's good processes in place. And we continue to see good results with those. So those will continue to operate, but wholesale is what we're really focusing on growing. So over time, I expect that to continue to be a larger and larger percentage of the business. And then private label is something we're dedicating more and more resources to lately. So I anticipate that will continue to increase as well. So that's a little bit there. Then the question about the SBI contest again. No, I haven't reached out to anybody who's won. So anybody who's submitted the details so far on the SBI contest, you're a winner. Congratulations. But you'll get an email later, and once there's been 100, then I'll stop taking new entries. So as soon as Pat's new book goes live, everybody will get a copy, and you'll get details on how you can expect that to arrive soon. Let's see. Next question is from Peter. Have you found the brand restrictions on eBay also? eBay tends to be a little bit more lenient when it comes to brand restrictions, in my opinion. They have what's called a Vero list. It's like a verified rights owner, something to that effect, and it'll have certain products on there that you can't sell on eBay. But for the most part, most of the things that are, I won't say most, but a lot of the things that are restricted on Amazon, you will be able to sell on eBay. So we've had many items in the past where we purchased it for Amazon, it ends up getting restricted, and then we turn around and sell it on eBay instead, because we can sell it on that platform. We can't sell it on Amazon for one reason or another. So the brand restriction issue is not as big of a deal on eBay. They're not quite as clear with telling you up front. Like if you scan an item with the Amazon seller app, it's going to say you're eligible to sell this product in new condition, or it's going to say restricted, you can't sell this product. It's something to that effect. eBay doesn't have the exact same scanning app system, so it's a little bit more difficult to know if it's restricted. But if you check like it's called the Vero, verified rights owner listing. If you Google that, you'll find some information that will let you know what's restricted and what you can and can't sell. Question: do you think hardware stores like Ace Hardware are good places to source? Yeah, I mean, literally any store that pops into your head as a potential place to source, I would try at least once. There's opportunities literally everywhere. Like I didn't actually purchase this item, but I was on vacation in Hawaii a couple weeks ago with my family at the Pearl Harbor Museum. And there's a gift shop at the Pearl Harbor Museum. There was a circular puzzle there that would have been great to sell on Amazon. I scanned it. I scanned probably like 3 or 4 items there, and there were multiple things that would have worked to sell on Amazon. So the place almost doesn't matter. There's likely opportunities there in some form or fashion if you're finding the right product on the right day. It's not going to be true 100% of the time, but I would highly encourage you, if something seems interesting, test it out and see what happens. Worst case, you spend an hour or 2 in the store and you don't find anything, but then you likely learned about products that are restricted. You learned about certain brands that you will be able to sell. Potentially you thought of a product that you can wholesale from us directly from a supplier. Rarely has spending time exploring a new way of getting inventory. Rarely has that been a bad idea. So hardware stores definitely could be a good angle. And I'd encourage you to test out anything that you're considering as a potential source of inventory. I'd encourage you to check it out. What is one thing you wish you knew when you first started that you know now? That's a good question. Let's see. I would say one thing, I don't know. I mean, some things that I know now that worked really well that I would want to know if I was starting over would be outsource from the beginning, put good systems and processes in place, and then get other people involved in the business, and then reinvest as much as you possibly can into the business. Those are 2 really big things that have been big catalysts for me being able to grow my business and grow it quickly. So that's a few things that I would do. I don't know if there's like one big massive thing, but like if I had to boil it down to just a couple of things, those are 2 things that I would definitely want to know if I was starting today. And then the other one kind of piece to that too is, if you're thinking about, this kind of relates to what I was saying in that last question, but if you're thinking about testing something out, I highly encourage you to do that and just see what happens. I've tried a lot of things in the business. Some worked, some didn't. But even on the ones that didn't, I typically learned something that will help me in the future. So if you're debating between doing something and not, and it's not going to make or break you financially, I'd encourage you to do it. And then you're either going to be right and make money, or you're going to be wrong and you're going to learn something, and then that's going to still benefit you for the future. So that's a few thoughts there. Johnny's asking, does Amazon have a good support system for FBA? I would say, generally speaking, I don't know exactly what you mean by support system, but they have what's known as Amazon Seller Support. So if there's any type of issue with a product that you're selling, a listing, a shipment to Amazon, really anything, they have what's known as seller support, and it's basically customer service for Amazon sellers. And typically that's pretty reliable and a good way to go. So I would say yes. If that wasn't the angle you were going for with the question, let me know, and we'll get back to it. All right, Greg is asking, when in your business did you start building your team? What functions did you outsource first? So I started full-time on Amazon. I quit my job to do this September of 2013. And then the first person that I hired was to help me purchase items. And that was in about May of 2014, if I remember correctly. So about 6 to 8 months in, I was hiring people to help me source products to sell on Amazon. So for me, it made sense to have people help buy products. But yeah, that's how I did it. Elizabeth, for OA, do you use OA X-ray or tactical arbitrage or something else? So yes, to really all three. So we have subscriptions to both tactical arbitrage and OA X-ray. We use OA X-ray more, or excuse me, we use tactical arbitrage quite a bit more than OA X-ray. In particular, we like the bulk lists. You can upload entire lists of links for a specific store, and then it's going to evaluate all of those for you. So that particular feature with tactical arbitrage is one that we use. And then we also have virtual assistants who do various portions of the online arbitrage process too. And then kind of a side note is all the tools that I use are listed on onlineselling-experiment.com/resources. That's a list of literally everything that I use to sell on Amazon. And I update that at any time that a tool changes, but I review it about once a month and make sure that that's up to date. So then Billy's asking, what scanning app do you use? So we use a couple different ones. Scoutify by Inventory Lab is the main one. We use the Amazon Seller app. And then we also use ScanPower to be able to scan certain items too. The reason we use Scoutify is the default, the preferred option. It's fastest, and we've grown accustomed to it, both me and my sourcers. So sourcers/buyers, but effectively they're guys on the team who help with retail arbitrage. So Scoutify is the default option. And then if we need to check restrictions, then we'll use the Amazon Seller app. And then occasionally we'll use ScanPower, which it'll show you the restrictions directly on the app. Similar to the Amazon Seller app, but it provides the data in a better format and provides some other useful information. It just doesn't scan quite as quickly as Scoutify. So Scoutify is the default if we're scanning in a store that we know, generally speaking, we're not going to run into a ton of restrictions, and then we'll double check it with the Amazon Seller app. And then if we're in a store that we're running into lots of restrictions, then we'll use ScanPower, as it'll show us the restrictions directly within the app. All right. Can you speak more to this outsourcing point? What exactly do you mean by that? What resources should one check out on this? So what I mean by outsourcing is getting people involved in the business to do tasks that you are currently doing, or to do tasks that will add more money to the business. So my goal in the business is always to be doing the task that has the highest value for the business. And what can I be working on that no one else in the business can do? So if I'm packing and shipping boxes, that's something that you can hire out for $10 an hour or so. And then that frees up your time to be able to work on higher level things for the business and continue to be able to grow that to kind of the next level and take that next step. So then once you have, this is just a hypothetical example, but then once you have shipping outsourced, then maybe it's, okay, I'm in stores scanning retail items and buying items via retail arbitrage. It's like, then the thought is effectively, okay, I could have someone else do this for me. I can systematize exactly what I'm doing, have them do that, and then that frees me up to work on wholesale. So that's kind of the thought process that I'm working towards with the outsourcing. Basically, what can someone else do what you are doing? And if the answer is yes, once you have the cash flow to be able to sustain that, I would work on getting someone else doing that product or doing that process. And then you are freed up to work on something that generates a higher positive value for the business. And this is assuming you want to grow the business to a high level and eventually outsource yourself from it. Some people want to just make some side income and they want to do it all themselves, and they don't want the potential headaches that come along with hiring other people and lots of moving pieces. So it just depends on your goals. But if your goal is to make it somewhat passive and then grow it to a large level, you're going to need to get other people involved. So that's a few thoughts. And then in terms of resources to check out on this, there's a blog post on my site called Hiring a Virtual Assistant for Online Arbitrage. That one's also linked to on the homepage. That's a good way to get someone involved with the online arbitrage portion. And then I also have an ebook about how I set up retail arbitrage buyers and outsource the retail arbitrage portion of the process. It's called Outsourcing Sourcing, and that's available at onlinesellingexperiment.com/outsourcing. So if you can't find those, shoot me an email and let me know. But that's a few different thoughts there. Mike's asking, does your roommate know you're giving a webinar? I think he might have missed the memo there. But yeah, my roommate has actually done some guest posts on the blog too. So if you've been following for a long time, if you look at the posts from Jonathan Gaz, the guest results post, he was selling online part-time for quite a while, and did some guest results posts. So you can check those out too. And he made a guest appearance here, walking by a couple times. So Raj is asking, how do you handle returns and refunds? So with the FBA program, basically the customer gets to decide if they return the item or not. It's the exact same as if they purchased the item from Amazon. They just ship it back directly to Amazon, and then Amazon will take a look at the item, see if it's still brand new. And if it is, they'll put it back into your inventory. If it's not, then they'll put it in your unfulfillable inventory. So Amazon handles the bulk of the process. And then once the customer ships the item back to Amazon, they will issue a refund to the customer. So for the most part, Amazon takes care of most of it. The only way you really have to get involved is if there's something wrong with the item. And if the item goes in your unfulfillable inventory, then you'll have to get it shipped back to you and take action on it. But for the most part, Amazon handles the bulk of the process. All right. Yeah, so we got about 10 minutes left here. We'll wrap up sometime near 7:30. It looks like we've got a couple questions left in the queue. So definitely keep them coming if you've got them. And happy to take questions through 7:30. All right. When you hired someone to help sell products, did you train them yourself, or how did you get that person ready? I ask because one of my friends wants to help out, but I do not know where to get them started. Yeah. So with that, I did train them myself. Basically, with any process, the goal is to boil it down to what you're doing and then have someone else follow that. So whatever information you use to make a buying decision for a product, whether it's retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, boil that down to the few key points. So it's probably going to include like sales rank, return on investment, profit amount. Those would probably be the main things. Those are the main things that I factor in. Boil it down to that, and then basically make it like a flow chart. If this is yes, then do this. Yes, yes. If it's all yeses, then you purchase the product. If there's a no somewhere along the way, then it goes somewhere else in the flow chart, and then potentially it doesn't get purchased. But I boil down your current process into the simplest form, and then show someone else exactly what you do. So like for a retail arbitrage buyer, I would go to whatever stores you're currently sourcing from and that you're getting results from, take them with you, show them exactly how you're doing what you're doing, exactly why you're buying what you're buying, and then show them that. And if you want my full process on that, onlinesellingexperiment.com/outsourcing has the ebook on that. But really the main goal is to boil down the process that you're doing and then show that to someone else. Carl's asking, when you hire outsourcers, do you pay them by the hour or a commission percentage? So that they're typically paid commission percentage. We find that works better for them and for us. So that's the default way that we do that. Rob is asking, sorry if you already covered this. Any techniques for keeping folks off your listing? Have you branded any products? Yeah, so that, Rob, relates more to private label than what we're doing. In general, we're selling primarily existing brands outside of the little bit of private label that we do. The biggest thing, like if you can get your product registered via brand registry, that's probably the biggest thing you can do to keep people off of your listings. But yeah, I don't have any crazy tricks there, I'm afraid. Private label is not quite as I don't have quite as much experience there as the other, like the retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, and wholesale type sourcing models. So if you shoot me an email though after this, I can potentially put you in contact with someone who might be able to better answer that question. All right, Greg, as systematized process is formalized how training materials. So in terms of systematizing processes, I think this is asking how we're documenting that. Most of it's through Google Docs. We just put together a quick document that shares exactly what we're walking through the process. And then that's kind of what we use for our training materials. Like with retail arbitrage though, for example, which is one we've touched on, that's largely an in-person exercise. We literally go into the stores with them, with the people that we're hiring to do this, and then showing them exactly what we do. And then from there, we'll show them it. But we do have it documented, but for the most part, that's a live in-person thing. But in terms of the format, typically we're using Google Docs. It's an easy way to share things back and forth. So yeah, let me know if I missed anything on that question. Antonio, how much of a new product do you purchase to test? So this varies depending on which sourcing method we're using. For retail arbitrage, we're typically not buying more than 6 on an initial purchase, unless there's other seasonal factors that lead us to want to purchase more. But 6 is our default number, or default maximum. Sometimes we'll still be less. Online arbitrage, about the same, 6. Wholesale, typically with our initial orders, we will buy about the minimum possible. So if we can buy 1 or 2 of a specific unit, we'll see how that does, and then we'll bump our orders up from there. With private label, we aim to, again, buy a pretty small quantity here as well. So in the past, we've done about 300 to 500 units. If the buy cost is less than about $7 or $8, we'll try to keep that as low as we can. And then based on that and based on how things go, we will purchase more from there. If we were doing a higher price point, then we'd go lower. All right, Mike is asking, how perfect does packaging and product need to be? We found several items in the discount rack that had creased, dented, or ripped packaging, some subtle and some bad. So when it comes to product description on Amazon and what condition to rank it as, if it needs any explanation, then I would not list it as new. So like in all those instances where you see creases, dents, ripped packaging, I wouldn't list it as new if it has any of those things. If it needs any explanation, don't list it as new. That doesn't mean though that it can't be sold on Amazon. So if it's something that still has a good return on investment percentage, or you can get it at a really good price, then I would evaluate it based on the low used prices on Amazon as opposed to the new prices, and see if there's opportunities there for to sell it as used. And then typically I like to avoid used like new most of the time too, unless it's just a slightly damaged box. Used very good. It's kind of my preferred condition. And then you can put in the description, item is unopened but has damage to packaging, something like that. And then that's how I would do that. But I don't mess around with condition on Amazon. If it needs any explanation, don't list it as new, but that doesn't necessarily rule it out. It just shouldn't be listed as new, and used would be a good option. So Dan is asking, how do you find wholesale suppliers? So, I mean, we could talk about this for a long time, but the short version is we find products that are selling well on Amazon, and then we are going to look those up, Google them, and look for the contact information for that particular. We're going to look to find the distributor, the manufacturer, and then we're going to look for their contact information, whether that's filling out a contact form or if they have like an email address. And then we'll reach out directly to the company and see if they're open to having us purchase wholesale from them. So that's the quick version. There's a lot more that goes into the process, but more or less we find products that we want to sell, and then we reach out and see if it's something that will be a fit. And then from there, we have to evaluate the prices that they are offering the items to us at, and see if that makes sense to sell on Amazon. And then we also typically want to verify that they are going to allow us to sell those items on Amazon as well, because there are some wholesale suppliers that aren't going to allow you to sell on Amazon. All right, so I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, so I think we'll wrap it up here for now. If anything comes up after the fact, leave a comment on a blog post related to your question, and I will be sure to get back to you. So any post on onlineSellingExperiment.com, I'm checking the comments there at least a few times a week. So that's typically the best way to get a hold of me if you have specific questions. Otherwise, yeah, onlineSellingExperiment.com is where you can find me. I see a couple last minute questions, so we'll jump into those real fast. Process for getting approvals. On whatever product you're seeing the restriction on, click through and you should see how to apply for approval. That's going to take a little bit longer than a minute to answer those. So, but do that or open a case with Amazon Seller Support, and they'll let you know how to get that approval and what the process is. And Johnny's asking, will you have follow-up webinars? Yeah, I do these occasionally. It's not super often or on a set schedule, but there's definitely more. If you want to get notified of when they're going to be, just sign up for my email list. There's options to do that on the homepage of onlineSellingExperiment.com, and then you'll make sure that you're up to date and don't miss out on any of these. But it's probably one every couple months at the most. But yeah, so we'll wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for showing up. Hope it helps you with your business, and please get in touch if I can do something to help your business or if additional questions come up. So hope you all have a good rest of your night, and we'll talk to you later.